What if health did not depend on heredity, circumstances, or external methods, but was instead the inevitable result of a sacred order operating within you? For years you have tried in every way, from medicine and diets to modern therapies, yet something still feels incomplete. The body is not merely flesh. It is a mirror reflecting your beliefs and your state of consciousness. And when you discover the unchanging spiritual law that the source of healing resides within your own soul, you will realize that you have never been without health. You have only needed to awaken it. Introduction. Health as a spiritual law. Why is it that some people follow strict diets, exercise regularly, undergo frequent checkups, try every method from Western medicine to Eastern healing, from modern science to traditional remedies, yet their bodies remain frail and illness returns again and again, while others seem not to be overly concerned with rigid rules, and yet they sustain health, clarity of mind, and abundant energy? Viewed from a purely external perspective, one may produce countless explanations: genetics, constitution, age, environment. But the truth lies at a deeper level, in an unseen principle that humanity seldom touches: the spiritual law. This law is neither a vague hypothesis nor a sentimental belief. It operates with the certainty of gravity itself, objective and impartial. When you drop an object, you do not need to pray for it to fall. It falls in accordance with the law. Health, likewise, obeys a spiritual order, and only when one understands that order can one truly master the body. What we commonly call disease is, in reality, the final outcome of a process that began in the mind. The body is like a faithful mirror, reflecting whatever the mind projects upon it. If the mind is filled with anxiety, fear, resentment, and unrest, the body will record and manifest these as tension, disorders, pain, even incurable conditions. Conversely, when the mind is saturated with faith, peace, love, and the awareness of oneness with the infinite source of life, the body responds with vitality, resilience, and natural radiance. There is no chance, no favoritism here. All unfolds under the spiritual law as surely as water flows downstream. Why then do most people fail to recognize this? Because man is habitually turned outward at the first sign of illness. Instinct drives him to doctors, to medicines, to therapies one after another. None of these are wrong, but they only touch the surface. It is as if you see a plant withering and try to mist its leaves, forgetting that its roots are parched beneath the soil. The root of all illness lies in consciousness, the place where the signals are generated, and the body is but the servant. If the root remains entrenched in negative thought patterns, then no matter how many leaves are replaced, the tree remains diseased. The spiritual law teaches that every thought is a seed. A seed once sown is never lost. It will germinate at the appointed time. A thought planted in fear reaps unrest. A thought planted in resentment reaps disorder. A thought planted in limitation reaps sickness. On the other hand, when thoughts of peace, harmony, and faith in the divine life are planted, the harvest is health, vitality, and enduring balance. There are no exceptions, for this law knows no partiality. It simply returns in perfect fidelity what you have placed within. So what determines your health? Not costly drugs, not a flawless diet, not inherited genes or family bloodline. The determining factor lies within, in how you think of yourself, in the picture you cultivate of life, in the belief you hold about your body. If you believe your body is weak, it will behave accordingly. If you believe it is sustained by divine strength, it will become the living evidence of that belief. It is time for mankind to reverse the approach. Instead of seeing health as a matter of luck or biological inheritance, see it as the inevitable result of alignment with spiritual law. Regard your mind as the field and your body as the harvest. One cannot sow weeds and expect to reap wheat. One cannot plant in poisoned soil and demand sweet fruit. The body simply reflects with unwavering accuracy what you have sown in consciousness. This explains why some remain healthy all their lives without relying heavily on external aids. They nurture their inner life in peace and faith. It also explains why others, chasing one doctor and one method after another, never escape illness because they've never touched the root, never reconciled with their own mind, never realized that the body is but a mirror. The spiritual law opens an entirely new vision. It declares that you are not a helpless victim. You are the master. Every thought you accept, every emotion you sustain, every belief you repeat becomes the command that the body faithfully obeys. The body does not resist you. It only carries out the orders you issue in the depths of the subconscious. If you issue commands of limitation, the body becomes limited. If you issue commands of life, the body overflows with vitality. From this day forward, if you truly desire health, begin where few ever think to look, in your own thoughts. Recognize that health is not something external to be hunted. With a natural state of mind, when it lives in harmony with the divine order, when you learn to adjust the inner life, when you change the quality of your beliefs and thoughts, then your body must obey. And this is not a miracle, it is law. The house of God is the inner temple. Since the dawn of time, humanity has carried a deep longing to find the dwelling place of God. People have built majestic temples, magnificent cathedrals, climbed high mountains, or crossed barren deserts in search of the divine presence. Yet every outward step is but a shadow, if one does not return to the most sacred place of all, the temple within. The true house of God is not made of brick and stone, nor does it stand in some distant land. It is the inner sanctuary, the silent depths where the soul meets the infinite source of life. In this temple, there are no walls, no roof, no need for elaborate rituals. It is always open, always radiant, always awaiting your entrance. When you realize that your body and your consciousness are themselves the temple, everything appears in a new light. You no longer see the body as fragile flesh and bone, but as a living structure sustained by the presence of God. Every cell, every heartbeat, every breath becomes a silent prayer. You cease chasing outer ceremonies for healing, for you now understand that the source of healing is already within, waiting only for your cooperation and your willingness to receive. Ask yourself, how many times in your life have you sought answers everywhere, forgetting that the key rests within your own heart? You sought doctors, healers, advice from books and from others, but have you ever sat still, closed your eyes, and asked your own soul, where is God? If you are honest, you will see that the answer has never been outside. It has always echoed in the stillness of your inner being. And it is this stillness that opens the doorway into the house of God. The wonder is that this door is never locked. You need no password, no permit, no approval from any religion or doctrine. All that is required is pure attention and the will to live in harmony with the good right now. Within you, there is a presence that knows how to restore order to every cell. The question is not whether it exists, but whether you dare to believe, to open your heart, to recognize it and live in union with it. Some may ask, if God dwells in me, Why am I still sick, still suffering? The answer is simple. Because you have never entered the temple, never been still enough to hear his voice. You have remained outside the door, rushing about, fixated on outer disorder and forgetting the call from within. The temple of God has never vanished. It is still there. But you must choose to step inside. Picture a pure spring flowing in the heart of the desert. The weary traveler may cry out, may collapse in despair, may believe his fate is sealed. But if he bends down, cups his hands, and drinks, life is restored. The healing power within you is the same. It is always there, like the spring awaiting your recognition. It shows no favoritism. It refuses no one. It only waits for you to drink. And here, let me ask you this. Have you ever paused to feel your body as a temple? Have you ever placed your hand over your heart, closed your eyes, and whispered, I am the house of God. The divine life dwells in me. If not, I invite you to try it now. Even for a few seconds, and watch as peace flows in. For only when you acknowledge this temple do you truly touch the healing power that has always been present. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this journey. Your presence here is no accident. For the moment you have read these words, you have been reminded that God is within you, that you need seek no longer outside. Take it as a gift, an invitation to enter the inner sanctuary where the healing power never runs dry. Illness is the mirror of belief. Every manifestation of the body is a faithful reflection of what is taking place within consciousness. A pain does not arise on its own. It is the result of signals that you have sent repeatedly in the silence of thought. A symptom is not an enemy invading from the outside, but the mirrored image of the beliefs you have planted and nurtured over time. Once you understand this, you cease to see illness as a random force and begin to recognize it as a mirror that reveals the truth of your own being. Belief is thought that has sunk deep into the realm of feeling and become a pattern. A passing thought does not have the strength to transform, but a thought repeated, infused with fear or resentment, gradually builds a fortress in the mind. Once that fortress is established, the body has only one task, to reflect it. The one who lives in constant fear finds the body shrinking, the nervous system tense, the muscles rigid, the immune system weakened. The one who clings to guilt lays pressure upon the body, producing symptoms of high blood pressure or headaches. The one who drowns in resentment creates the conditions for inflammation and heat to spread through the cells. No symptom stands apart from this spiritual cause. Observe yourself. When you are sad, your shoulders sink. When anxious, your heartbeat and breath quicken. When angry, your whole body heats and tightens. These are direct proofs that the body reacts to every thought and feeling. And when a state is repeated long enough, it leaves a deeper imprint and becomes disease. The body does not create independently. It only executes the orders of consciousness. What you think, what you believe, what you habitually feel, your body becomes the living evidence of these. This also means that a change of belief brings a change of body. If illness is a mirror, then once the inner image is transformed, the mirror will return a new reflection. When someone decides to abandon belief in limitation and replace it with the conviction that the body is nourished by a divine source of life, recovery begins to appear. At first it may show as lightness, deeper breathing, more restful sleep, but these are signs that the mirror has already shifted. If one perseveres in this new belief, the body must undergo full transformation. Some protest that illness still comes to kind, virtuous people who believe in good, so it cannot always be the result of false belief. But one must distinguish between surface belief and belief that has taken root in the subconscious. Many profess faith in health outwardly, yet inwardly fear sickness, remain haunted by heredity, or believe aging must mean decline. These hidden convictions are the true roots, while surface words are too weak to alter them. The mirror does not reflect what you say in passing. It reflects what you have repeated in your heart for years. The secret lies in identifying and replacing old beliefs. Healing cannot come merely by addressing symptoms, but by examining which belief sustains them. Once discovered, you may resolutely choose a new belief and nourish it with repetition, with feeling, with persistence. When the new belief grows strong enough, it dissolves the old image and the body begins to manifest another state. This is law, and this law never errs. Therefore, do not regard illness as punishment. See it as reminder. It shows you what within needs correction. A mirror holds no malice. It only reflects faithfully. When you see a poor image in the mirror, you do not blame the mirror, you adjust yourself. The body is the same. It merely reveals what in the mind calls for change, and the good news is that the instant you dare to change, the mirror responds at once. This truth does not dismiss the value of medicine or physical care, but it declares that external measures only endure when paired with inner renewal. Medicine can ease a symptom, but if false belief remains, illness will return in another form. Only when the root of belief is transformed is health truly and securely established. The encouraging reality is that you need not wait a lifetime to alter belief. The moment you decide to embrace a new truth, the change begins. The body responds instantly to belief, and though full restoration may require time, the process is already underway. Once you turn with steadfastness, nothing can hinder the reestablishment of order within. Illness is a mirror, and the mirror never lies. It reveals what you truly believe, not merely what you wish to believe. When you dare to look straight into it, you gain the chance to adjust the original image, and once that image is renewed, the mirror reflects something wholly new, a body whole, radiant, overflowing with life. This is not a promise. It is the unfailing operation of spiritual law, the reverse law of cause and effect. The inner shapes the outer. Man has long been taught that the outer world dictates his inner state. An event occurs, and we are sad. A loss comes, and we grieve. A success arrives, and we rejoice. But the spiritual law operates in the opposite direction. The outer world is nothing more than the mirror projection of the inner world. It is belief, attitude, and inner consciousness that mold circumstances, health, and environment. Once you grasp this principle, you will see that you are not a puppet of conditions, but the very architect of them. Every thought in the mind is a seed sown into the soil of the universe. If the mind continually sows fear, anxiety, and strain, the universe responds with unrest in circumstance and disorder in the body. If the mind sows faith, peace, and love, the universe answers with harmony, health, and bright opportunities. This is the reversed law of cause and effect. The cause is within. The outer is but the result, like an artist painting from his imagination. The material world faithfully copies the inner picture you carry each day. When consciousness unites with infinite love and wisdom, order emerges of itself. A clear mind is like pure water wherever it flows. It cleanses impurity. The body is renewed. The surroundings grow harmonious. On the other hand, when consciousness is filled with doubt and resistance, that water grows murky, and disorder manifests in both body and life. This is not theory. It is a practical principle you can observe within yourself. Recall a time when you were deeply stressed. Everything around you seemed heavy. But when you kept a calm spirit, even the difficult became manageable. This proves that the inner always precedes and the outer merely replies. No event carries a fixed meaning. It is your consciousness that bestows meaning, and by doing so, determines your experience. Therefore, the key lies in inner transformation. If you want health to change, first alter belief, attitude, and state of mind. If you want less turmoil outside, first establish peace within. This is the reverse law of cause and effect. When the root within is corrected, the fruits without naturally change. A tree cannot bear different fruit if the root remains the same. Only when the root is altered can a new harvest appear. And now, I must ask you, are you truly ready to look within and change? Instead of continuing to blame circumstance or fate, do you dare believe that your life and health as they are now are but reflections, and that you have the power to redraw the picture from within? If your answer is yes, let it be known that you are present in this story. Leave a comment saying, "I'm ready to change." Or simply type the number 1 to affirm that you have chosen to stand with the spiritual law. Thank you for being present on this journey. Your presence itself is evidence that you are listening to the call of the inner depths, that you are not here merely to hear and know, but to hear and transform. And when you declare yourself ready, the spiritual law will begin to move more powerfully in your life, restoring order in your body and in your world, redirecting attention and the mental equivalent. Attention is creative energy. Wherever you place it most consistently, that becomes the most powerful reality in your life. Yet most people have been conditioned into a faulty habit, staring endlessly at problems, analyzing symptoms, discussing difficulties, even embracing the fear of what might go wrong. Every moment spent drilling into disorder is a drop of water nourishing weeds. And then they are surprised when the garden of consciousness is overrun with weeds and flowers are scarcely to be found. The truth is that no one can hope for healing while still feeding what needs to be removed. To change, one must first stop watering the weeds. This does not mean denying or pretending the problem does not exist. It means you stop pouring energy into disorder and begin directing that energy towards the source of life. Just as when a dark room is sealed, shut, you cannot force the darkness out. The only way is to open the door and let the light in. Instead of fighting symptoms with your mind, turn to the source where the healing light is always present. In spiritual practice, this is called building a mental equivalent. It is a clear, emotion-filled inner image of the healthy state you wish to experience, not a vague thought such as, "I want to be well," but a vivid and detailed picture of your own wholeness. You see yourself walking with ease, breathing deeply, living in peace, the body radiant with vitality. You need not copy anyone, for your health carries its own imprint, perfectly suited to you. When this image is nourished consistently, it becomes the blueprint the subconscious uses to reorganize the entire body. The crucial point is to saturate that image with feeling. A dry thought struggles to take root, but a vivid picture infused with trust and peace imprints deeply upon the subconscious. This is why complaints are so destructive. Every complaint reinforces a negative mental equivalent. Each time you say, "I am always tired," you hand the subconscious a distorted blueprint to carry out, and it will obey faithfully, for the body does not resist. It only follows the pattern the mind provides. The true power lies in replacing complaints with blessings. When instead of saying, "I'm so weak," you affirm, "I'm being nourished by the infinite source of life." You exchange the old blueprint for a new one. When instead of lamenting symptoms, You bless each cell. You plant new seeds in the soil of consciousness like a wise gardener. You do not merely cease watering the weeds. You begin sowing good seed. And your body, like fertile earth, responds with a new harvest, exactly in line with what you have planted. Many have witnessed this transformation when they stopped obsessing over symptoms, stopped repeating fears to others, and instead persevered in nurturing the image of wholeness. Their bodies began to change. At first, it might be a morning of unexpected lightness, a night of restful sleep, a new surge of energy in daily work. But these small signs are the evidence that a new mental equivalent is becoming reality. And with continued nourishment, health becomes a lasting experience. The mental equivalent is not idle fantasy. It is the creative law of the universe. Everything in existence was once an idea before it took form. The house you live in was once a drawing on paper. The chair you sit upon was once an image in the carpenter's mind. The healthy body you long for is no different. It must be drawn first in the mind before it can appear clearly in the material world. This law shows no favoritism, no partiality. It works only with the blueprint. You hand it. The difference between those who succeed in healing and those who fail is not luck, but who remains steadfast in nurturing a healthy mental equivalent. Some sketch a beautiful image, but immediately destroy it with complaints and worries. They sow wheat, then dig it up to check if it has sprouted. The wise, however, sow and trust, watering with blessings and peace. And in due time, they see the harvest redirecting attention. Combined with building the mental equivalent is the golden key. It lifts you out of the cycle of obsession with symptoms and returns you to the creative flow already within you. When you stop gazing at the weeds and start sowing new seed, the garden of consciousness changes color. And as the garden changes, the body becomes the faithful mirror reflecting that new green. This is law. Certain and without exception, words are seeds of creation. Words are not mere sounds passing across the lips. They are energy shaping life itself. Every sentence you utter, if infused with feeling, becomes a prayer, a command sent into the universe that returns into your very body. When you speak of weakness, you plant the seed of weakness. When you repeat words of weariness, you draw the mental equivalent of fatigue. And when you continually bless the body with words of gratitude, you sow the seed of order and vitality. This is an immutable principle, for the body is but a faithful student, ever following the lesson given to it through your words. There are those who, whenever asked about their state, immediately reply with familiar phrases. I often have headaches. My back is weak. I was born frail. They think it is merely a factual description, but in truth, it is a repeated affirmation, a negative prayer. The subconscious does not distinguish between a joke and reality. It receives only the command emphasized by feeling and repetition. The result is that their bodies continue to embody frailty, fulfilling what has been affirmed. On the other hand, some choose to use words as a clear spring. They speak to their bodies with gratitude. They address each part as a loyal friend. Upon waking, they say, I have been given a new day, filled with strength and light. When looking into the mirror, they do not criticize, but affirm, I am reflecting divine order. Such words do more than create optimism. They are seeds sown into the subconscious, which then reorganizes the body into health. Thus, words become the key. They may serve as medicine or as poison, depending on their use. You cannot plant seeds of limitation and expect a harvest of vitality. You cannot continually declare exhaustion and hope to awaken with energy. Just as you cannot plant a cactus and expect sweet fruit, so too the body reflects precisely the seeds sown through speech. This explains why in spiritual traditions prayer and affirmation are so emphasized, not because they are ritual, but because they awaken the creative energy inherent in words. When you speak with faith, with love, with gratitude, every word is a current flowing into consciousness, shaping reality. The phrase times, this is the power of voice within. Not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to times is a reminder. The voice within you is not merely sound to hear. It is the space to which you return, the place where you affirm the divine truth of your being. Imagine if every word you spoke in a single day were a seed. What harvest would you be planting? If the seeds are complaint, comparison, criticism, then do not be surprised when life's garden is full of weeds. If the seeds are gratitude, love, affirmation of life, then the garden will bloom bright with fruit and flowers, and the body, the most faithful mirror, will display this in health and radiance. The skill lies in training words to be companions of healing. No ornate language is needed, only sincerity and persistence. Instead of saying, I do not want illness, say, I live in order and health. Instead of, I am always anxious, say, I am upheld by peace. Instead of, I cannot, say, I am given energy to accomplish. Each small shift in speech is a new seed cast into the subconscious. Words do not stand still. They move with you, surround you, and become the spiritual atmosphere you breathe each day. If that atmosphere is filled with the darkness of complaint and fear, you will feel suffocated. But if it is filled with the light of affirmation and gratitude, you will feel expansive, light, and your body will naturally recover its inherent rhythm of health. Remember that the words you speak to yourself are no less important than those you speak to others. Every whispered phrase, every silent repetition is a prayer sent into consciousness, and consciousness, faithful as soil, brings forth whatever seed is sown. You have the power to choose the seed, and therefore the power to choose the future of your health and your life. This is the greatest authority given to you, and it lies upon your very tongue. The healing mirrors of Scripture are law. Without exception, every healing recorded in the Bible was not a disruption of natural order, nor a fleeting mystical event, never to be repeated. They are vivid demonstrations of an unchanging spiritual law, a law that always operates and is ever ready to reveal its power to anyone who knows how to cooperate with it. Jesus did not perform miracles by tampering with a random system. He simply revealed the strength that has existed eternally within divine order. When he said, "You are the temple of God," he was not speaking in metaphor. He was declaring a profound truth. Your consciousness is the temple, and your body is but the form sustained by that consciousness. Observe how Jesus healed. He did not impose complex conditions, nor require the sick to memorize doctrine, nor scrutinize their past. He asked for one thing, faith. The woman who touched the hem of his garment was healed, not by the act of touching, but because in that moment her faith aligned with spiritual law. The blind were given sight not by a random wonder, but because their consciousness united with the truth that light was always present. He did not dispense health as a reward. He simply awakened the divine law already in operation, allowing them to experience it instantly. Once you grasp this, you will cease to see the healings of Scripture as distant stories and begin to recognize them as mirrors. They declare that what happened for them can happen for you. For spiritual law shows no favoritism. If the body is the temple, then consciousness is the architect laying each brick of that temple. When consciousness is filled with fear, resentment, or unbelief, the temple totters and decays. When consciousness is filled with faith, love, and peace, the temple stands firm and radiant. There is no secret beyond this direct relationship. This also explains why Jesus never attributed illness to the punishment of God. He affirmed that the Father in heaven gives only life, and that life flows ceaselessly through man. Disease is not caused by God. It is but the shadow of false belief, the wall that obstructs the perfect flow. When that wall is removed by faith in alignment with truth, health appears at once. Just as light floods in the instant a door is opened, picture the body as a lamp in consciousness, as the current. When the current flows, the lamp shines. When the circuit is broken by false belief, the light goes out. Jesus did not create electricity. He simply reconnected the circuit and let the light appear. He meant to prove that this power was not his alone, but belongs to all who return to the source. That is why he said, "The works I do, you shall do also, and greater works than these." This was not metaphor, but affirmation of law. Consciousness nourishes form. This is the foundational truth. If you see the body as merely a physical machine running on its own, you will always chase symptoms. But once you recognize that the body is ever faithful to consciousness, you will know that all lasting healing must begin within. This is the lesson the healings of Scripture intend to impart, not to glorify one singular figure, but to show all humanity the way back to the inner temple, where spiritual law reigns and divine life flows without ceasing. Read these stories with new eyes, and you will see they're not closed history, but a living manual for today. The woman healed by touching the garment is you. When you choose to believe in inner truth, the blind receiving sight is you. When you abandon old beliefs and see with spiritual eyes, the paralyzed rising is you. When you realize the body obeys consciousness and choose to affirm life instead of limitation, every story is a mirror, and mirrors never lie. Therefore, when you hear the words, "You are the temple," do not dismiss them as a beautiful phrase. Understand that your consciousness is shaping your form every day. Nourish it with faith, with love, with gratitude, so that the temple reflects its true divine nature. And remember, the healings of Scripture were never exceptions. They are the manifestation of spiritual law, a law as alive and effective today as in ancient times, ready to be revealed in your very life, declaring truth before evidence. In the order of spirit, truth always precedes evidence. Humanity is accustomed to the habit of waiting to see before believing, but divine law requires the reverse sequence. Believe and affirm first. Then the evidence appears, just as the farmer does not wait to see the sprout before trusting that the seed carries life, but plants with the firm faith that the soil and the sun will fulfill their work. So too, when you affirm divine truth, you are sowing into the soil of the subconscious, and in time it will germinate into manifestation in the body. What causes many to stumble is precisely this reversal. They wait until the illness disappears before daring to declare health, but this is error. In waiting, they secretly strengthen belief in the symptom, saying in effect that the symptom dictates their faith. But spiritual law never operates under such waiting. It operates only when man places trust in truth before the evidence. If one delays until pain is gone before believing that divine life is at work, one has already missed the principle of healing. The practice of authoritative affirmation is the way to place truth first. When you boldly declare, "The life of God flows in me," every cell is nourished by the infinite source. You have planted the seed. That seed may not immediately appear as a perfectly healthy body, but it begins to form a new mental equivalent. And like every seed, it requires time to root, care in faith, and cultivation through gratitude. No one plants a grain of wheat and then digs it up the next morning to see if it has sprouted. You trust the law of life, and by that trust you wait patiently. That trust itself is the power that causes the seed to grow. Declaring truth is not self-hypnosis or self-deception. It is the acknowledgement of a higher reality that stands above appearances. The body may still show symptoms, but truth is unchanged. The life of God still flows, still works, still maintains order. In declaring, you do not invent something unreal. You simply consent to the eternal fact, and it is this consent that opens the way for truth to manifest in the body. The key lies in the authority of the declaration. If you affirm timidly, as though testing whether it will work, the seed is weak and struggles to root. But if you declare with certainty, knowing you are voicing reality itself, then your words become a spiritual command with power to restructure the body. Each time you say with conviction, the life of God flows in me, asterisk, you are driving a stake, erecting the foundation of a new temple in the body. Some ask, how can I declare health when I still feel pain? When illness remains, but here is where spiritual law differs from human law. Man says, I must see to believe. Spirit says, believe and you shall see. A seed never germinates if you wait to see the plant before sowing. Likewise, the body cannot change if you wait for evidence before believing. Creative law moves in only one direction. Faith precedes. Manifestation follows. Those healed in Scripture walked by this principle. The paralytic rose not because evidence was already there, but because he believed the word. Rise, take up your bed, and walk. The blind received sight not because certainty was already proven, but because they believed light could enter. They declared truth first, and evidence followed as its inevitable result. Therefore, each time you face a symptom, remember, it is not the final voice. Place truth above sensation. Declare with authority that you are the temple of life, that every cell is upheld by divine light. Sow the seed with affirmation, nurture it with faith, and the body will yield evidence. No declaration is wasted, provided it is joined with genuine belief. This practice demands perseverance, but its reward is immeasurable. For when you learn to place truth before evidence, you change not only health but all of life. Every domain operates by this principle. The faith you sow in work, in relationships, in purpose will also germinate, and outer results will faithfully reflect it. What seed you plant, you will reap in due season. Thus your step is no longer waiting, but acting in faith. Say with the full authority of Spirit, the life of God flows in me, asterisk, then let divine law perform its part. Evidence will come. As surely as the plant comes from the seed, as surely as dawn follows night, certain and irresistible, this is the way spiritual law operates. And it never fails. Do not fight symptoms. Correct the cause. A symptom is not an enemy. It is a faithful messenger. It does not appear to punish you, but to reveal that something within the mind requires adjustment. When a red warning light flashes on a car's dashboard, you do not smash the dashboard. You lift the hood to find the true cause. Yet in life, people often do the opposite. At the sight of a symptom, they declare war, exhaust themselves fighting pain, struggling to suppress outer signs, while the inner cause remains untouched. The result is that the symptom falls silent only for a time, then returns often stronger than before. What must change is perspective. When symptoms arise, see them as signals, reminders that a false belief or a repressed emotion is dominating consciousness. Prolonged tension may appear as nervous disorders. Accumulated resentment may manifest as inflammation. Chronic fear may turn into fatigue. Every mental state leaves an imprint upon the body, and symptoms are the mirror reflecting faithfully. You need not fight the mirror, you need only change the image it reflects. With this understanding, you stop wasting energy, resisting appearances, and begin using that energy to correct the root. The root is belief and emotion. If an old belief says you are weak, it is no surprise the body responds with fatigue. If an old belief says you are prone to illness, the body will obey and display it. If your dominant feeling is fear, the body will live in constant strain. Thus, true healing requires a change of belief and emotion at the deepest level. Correcting the cause begins with observation. Instead of reacting with fear or anger when a symptom appears, quietly ask, what is it trying to teach me? Asterisk, am I carrying a persistent worry? Am I withholding forgiveness and clinging to resentment? Am I letting feelings of limitation govern my thought? When you dare to answer honestly, you realize that the symptom is a friend, not a foe. It reflects truth, so you may have the chance to change. Once the cause is identified, the next step is replacement. If you discover you are living in fear, begin to plant belief in divine safety. If you find resentment, practice forgiveness, not to excuse another, but to release yourself. If you uncover weakness as your self-image, affirm that infinite life nourishes every cell. This replacement is the rewriting of the blueprint the body has been following, and once the blueprint changes, symptoms gradually fade, not because they were crushed, but because they no longer have reason to exist. Remember, a symptom is never the root. It is only the result. The more you fight it, the more energy you give to the effect, like being angry at your shadow. But when you change your stance toward the light, the shadow changes by itself. So too with symptoms. When the cause in consciousness is corrected, the symptom vanishes naturally. This is true healing, a gentle yet certain process, because it strikes the root rather than trimming the surface. Many turn to remedies, but illness returns because only the surface was addressed. It is like cutting weeds at the top without pulling the root. Soon they grow again. Only when the root belief and emotion is removed is freedom lasting. This demands patience and courage to look within, but the result is deep and enduring healing. When you have experienced this, your whole approach to health changes. You no longer live in fear of symptoms, knowing they are but signals. You no longer rush to suppress them, knowing the root must be examined. You grow more serene, for you understand that spiritual law is always on your side. That law declares that the body faithfully reflects consciousness, and any adjustment in consciousness will surely reflect in the body. True healing does not come from battle, but from recognition and replacement, not by destroying symptoms, but by releasing causes, not by despising the body, but by listening to it and guiding it with right belief. Apply this principle, and you will see health arise as the natural result, not as the prize of struggle. And that is when you truly step into the order of divine law, where body and mind move together in peace, daily stillness, and inner communion. On the path of healing and restoring order, there is a simple yet mighty secret that many overlook. Stillness is not withdrawal from life, nor a complex ritual demanding years of discipline. It is simply the brief pauses in your day when you deliberately bring the mind back to the source of life, allowing consciousness to reset its rhythm and frequency. Just as a musical instrument must be tuned often to produce pure sound, so too must the human mind be tuned through stillness to resonate with divine order. A practice anyone can adopt is to set aside 3 moments of stillness each day: morning, noon, and night. In the morning, upon waking, before the world's noise intrudes, spend a few minutes in quiet, eyes closed, breathing slowly. Let the words, "Times I am in God," and "God is in me times," rise within. This is more than affirmation. It is the key that attunes the mind to peace. At noon, in the midst of work, take a few minutes to pause, breathe, and repeat the same words. You will feel energy renewed, like a stream flowing across dry ground. And at night, before sleep, instead of carrying worry and weariness into bed, let the final stillness connect you to the source, so you may drift into rest and peace and wake restored. These moments of stillness may seem small, yet they hold the power to reconfigure the entire field of the spirit. For in stillness you slip free of repeating thoughts. You step out of the clamor of the mind into the inner space where life flows silently. Here, truth speaks not with words or reasoning, but with presence. As the saying reminds us, this is the power of voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to. Asterisk, the power of the inner voice is not sound alone, but the sanctuary you may always re-enter, where you find union with the source. Practice daily the affirmation, "Times I am in God, and God is in me," times becomes the hidden rhythm feeding consciousness. It is like a frequency broadcast continually, and the body, ever loyal to the signal of the mind, begins to organize its systems accordingly. The heartbeat steadies, the breath deepens, the nerves calm, the soul clears. This is no fantasy, but the practical operation of spiritual law. Once the habit is established, you will notice subtle yet enduring change. Anxiety that once filled the mind yields to deep safety. Fatigue gives way to fresh energy. Most importantly, you cease to be pulled by outer noise and begin to live from the inner voice. This is the true center, the place of guidance and healing strength. Daily stillness does not cost much time, but it returns an entire life, reordered. Many think they are too busy to pause, but busyness itself proves the need for stillness. For stillness is not a luxury. It is necessity, the bridge carrying you from chaos back into peace. With 3 pauses a day, you set a new rhythm for the mind, gradually replacing the old habit of worry with the new habit of peace. And remember, stillness is not escape from the world, but return to the inner center, from which you re-enter life with greater clarity. When you touch the source in silence, you not only heal the body, but sow peace into every action, every word, every relationship. Morning stillness sets the tone for strength. Midday stillness keeps you steady. Evening stillness grants deep rest, so that at dawn you rise again, renewed. This is the foundation of inner communion, neither complex nor difficult, only requiring sincerity and constancy. Practice it, and you will see the body and life begin to reflect a new order, one that arises from within, enduring and unshakable, releasing resentment and cleansing the emotional foundation. There lies a hidden root beneath many illnesses that few ever recognize: resentment. Resentment is like a fire smoldering beneath the ashes, unseen, yet relentlessly burning the soul. A person may carry resentment for years, masking it beneath calm appearances. Yet in silence, that emotion leaks drop by drop, poisoning the mind and slowly breaking down the body's order. No physical frame can remain in balance when its emotional foundation is governed by waves of bitterness. Resentment keeps the soul chained to the past. It forces a person to relive moments of insult, betrayal, or injury over and over again. Though time has passed, the memory remains vivid, and each time it is stirred, the body reacts as if the wound were fresh. Stress hormone surge. The heart races, muscles tighten, immunity falters. Repeated for years. The body must eventually express this turmoil as disease. Resentment is not only a spiritual burden, it is a biological one. The need is not repression, nor pretense of forgetting, but release. To release resentment is not to excuse the wrongdoer, nor to call evil good. It is an act of compassion toward yourself, freeing you from the prison of the past, liberating the soul from unseen cords, draining creative energy. For when that energy is trapped in painful memories, it is no longer free to nourish the body, nor to build new life. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks this prison. Forgiveness is not a fleeting emotion, but a decision. It is the choice not to let old wounds define you, not to allow the shadows of the past to darken the present. Forgiveness means you return responsibility to others for their actions and reclaim freedom for yourself. Forgiveness does not change the past, but it changes the future by releasing the power locked away. When you forgive, a new flow begins, the heart lightens, the breath deepens, the body relaxes, spiritual peace begins to soak into every cell. This is no illusion. It is a biological reality. As resentment dissolve et stress hormones recede, the immune system strengthens, organs loosen their grip, and the body moves toward its inherent state of self-healing. Forgiveness is the cleansing of the emotional foundation, and cleansing the emotional foundation creates the environment for new life to flourish. Evidence abounds those who live in resentment for years often carry persistent illnesses that medicine soothes only briefly. Yet when they truly forgive, sometimes in a single instant of release, their bodies undergo remarkable change, like a garden long shrouded. The moment the cover is lifted and light pours in, life revives. Forgiveness is the act of opening the door to light, and that light is not from afar. It has always been within, waiting only for you to tear down the walls resentment has built. Begin the practice of forgiveness with yourself. Forgive the mistakes, the moments of self-blame, the times you have condemned your body or your being. Then extend forgiveness to others, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. Each act of forgiveness clears a patch of soil in the garden of the soul. Where seeds of peace and vitality may root, resentment is stagnant water, breeding disease. Forgiveness is a flowing stream, pure and refreshing. Your body needs that stream to renew itself. Your soul needs that flow to be made clear. When you lay down the burden, you give your body the chance to return to its primal rhythm, the rhythm of life. Nourished by love and divine order, releasing resentment is never easy, but it is the only road back to inner peace. And once inner peace is established, the body quickly follows. This is the truth spiritual law forever affirms. When you correct the emotional foundation, everything else finds its rightful place. Forgiveness is the supreme act of love, and love is the most powerful, creative energy you can ever give yourself. Consecrating the image of others and praying rightly. Prayer is not only the act of speaking to God about your own needs, it is also the way you behold others. Each time you pray for someone, you send forth an inner image. That image may lift them or bind them. If you pray while still holding them in your mind as sick, weak, or suffering, you are in fact reinforcing that state, even though your intention is good. But if you behold them as God beholds them, whole, radiant, reflecting divine life, then that image becomes the channel through which grace flows. This is the meaning of consecrating the image of another, to see them through the eyes of truth rather than the eyes of circumstance. The one who prays rightly never colludes with fear. When a loved one comes to you in despair, You may listen, you may sympathize, but you must not sink into their fear. Your task is to hold steadfastly to a higher vision, to see them standing in the light, to see them as the temple of God, to see life itself operating in every cell. For the image you maintain in your mind becomes a prayer more powerful than any words. This is why true prayer is not the repetition of fine phrases, but an inward act, a conscious choice of the image you nourish. You may recite hundreds of prayers, but if inwardly you still perceive weakness, your words are empty, sound. On the other hand, a single moment in which you truly see another bathed in the light of divine life holds immeasurable healing power. Have you noticed how often your worry for another seems to make their condition heavier? For worry itself is a false prayer. Een negatieve affirmation. When you worry for children, parents, or friends, you send them an image of unrest. But when you replace worry with faith, you impart strength, right? Prayer is the exchange of fear for the image of wholeness. And when many join together to hold a radiant vision for one person, the combined power can bring about wondrous transformation. Ask yourself now, when you think of your loved one in pain, what image arises within you? Do you see them fallen? Or do you see them rising? Do you see them lost in darkness? Or do you see them shining? Your answer reveals the quality of the prayer you are sending. And are you willing to change that vision, to lift them by beholding them in the light? Thank you for being present in this journey. Thank you for carrying not only concern for yourself, but love for those around you. For when you learn to pray rightly, you not only heal yourself, you become a channel of light for those you love. And that is one of the greatest gifts a soul can ever offer the world. Faith is communion, not strain of emotion. Faith is not the straining of will to generate positive feelings, nor the tense effort to believe something contrary to the senses. True faith is communion, direct contact with the divine presence alive within you. When the mind enters this moment of communion, faith arises as naturally as breath, without force, without artificial excitement. It is not a flickering emotion, but a deep certainty that there is a source of life at work, and that source is the foundation of all reality. Many imagine faith to be the attempt to believe, the attempt to think positively, the effort of repeating affirmations until some comfort appears. But this is surface only. Faith does not come from such vain striving. It comes when you pause, grow still, and let the mind touch the unchanging presence. In one true instant of communion, you are upheld, and that knowing is stronger than any resistance. Authoritative words arise only from this place. When you speak in communion, your words are no longer personal thoughts, but the expression of truth. That is why they carry authority. They are not begging, not pleading for some external mercy, but declaring from the position of union with truth. When you say, "The life of God flows in me," asterisk in communion, those words become a spiritual command, shaking the unseen structures that shape body and life. True faith does not demand shouting or emotional intensity. It requires only alignment with truth. Observe one who carries authority. They do not prove, argue, or plead. They simply state what is right, and it is carried out. Faith is the same, an inner knowing unshaken by symptoms, unmoved by circumstance. It is like an underground current, silent yet unstoppable. When you live in communion, your words become simple yet powerful. You no longer repeat endless affirmations with worry in your heart. You speak but a few words in presence, and those words carry the weight of truth. Power lies not in the number of syllables, but in the depth of inner contact. Communion nourish faith, and faith turns words into instruments of creation and healing. Faith is not blind stubbornness. It does not deny reality or pretend away difficulty. It sees beyond the surface to essence. When the body shows symptoms, you do not deny their appearance, but you simultaneously behold the greater truth that divine life still flows unbroken, and you choose to stand with that truth. This is the difference between forcing belief through emotion and living in true faith. Every great healing arose from this point of communion. The woman who touched the hem of Jesus' garment did not strain to believe. She simply connected in a profound moment with presence, and power flowed instantly. The centurion who said, "Only speak a word, and my servant shall be healed," was not trying hard to believe, but understood how authority operates. That understanding was faith. Each story proves the principle. Faith is not born of emotional effort, but of communion. You can see the difference in daily life. When you try to believe, the mind strains, the body tires, and the belief collapses at trial. But when you touch communion, peace floods and a silent certainty fills you, and, order will prevail. This is enduring faith, not tied to passing feelings, but rooted in eternal truth. Thus, the way to strong faith is not straining, but practicing inner contact with presence daily, just moments of stillness, repeating truth in peace, letting the mind sink into the flow of life. Each time you deepen communion, and faith becomes as natural as breathing. Faith ceases to be something you try to achieve. It becomes the state you live in. And that state is the ground for every authoritative word, a word no longer of pleading, but of union with divine truth. Peace is the active power that restores order. Peace is not retreat from life, nor the masking of fear beneath a quiet exterior. Peace is a spiritual force, a deliberate power capable of setting all things back into their rightful order. People often think of peace as a mere feeling of relief, but under spiritual law, peace is a current of creative energy stronger than any struggle. When the inner life chooses peace, that current opens channels for healing to flow in, for clarity to shine forth. Peace is not an after effect, it is the cause. In daily life, people instinctively choose worry, anger, or tension as their first response to events. Yet such reactions only deepen disorder, tightening the body, clouding the mind, and corrupting judgment. But when you choose peace first, you transform the entire spiritual atmosphere. Like a darkened room, suddenly lit, everything reveals its true place without force. This is the power of peace. Without pushing, it restores order. Many confuse peace with surrender. They think peace means passive acceptance, leaving things to happen at will. But true peace is an intentional act, the choice not to feed disorder. It is like a watchman at the gate, discerning what may enter, refusing entry to intruders. Peace does not neglect. Peace protects and directs. By choosing peace, you affirm that a higher order governs life, and you take your stand with that order. The body responds instantly to peace. When the mind rests in calm, muscles release, breath deepens, immunity strengthens, and the self-healing process is activated. This is not imagination, but biology. And when peace becomes habit, the body retrains itself to dwell in order rather than disorder. Thus, peace is not only a pleasant feeling, it is the strongest medicine for body and soul. Remember, peace does not arrive from outside. It is the choice you make each day. Circumstances may remain, but you can choose the inner rhythm. When you whisper within, "I choose peace," asterisk, you activate spiritual power, and that energy begins to radiate outward. Inner peace gradually becomes an atmosphere surrounding you, stripping even tense situations of their power. This is why peace is the foundation of all healing. If you chase health while the soul is restless, your effort is like building on sand. But if you establish peace first, health returns of itself as light drives out darkness. Peace restores order. The phrase times, this is the power of voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to times applies here in fullness. Peace is that inner voice, not only sound to hear, but the vast space to which you return, larger and stronger than any outward turmoil. Imagine if every time storms rose, you chose peace. How would your life change? Decisions would grow clearer, relationships less strained, health less worn by stress. You would no longer be dragged into cycles of reaction, but become the center that radiates order into yourself and your environment. This is the highest form of mastery, for it depends not on circumstance, but on choice. And when peace becomes reflex, simple miracle appear. Problems once burdensome begin to resolve themselves. Pains once persistent begin to ease. Doors once shut begin to open, not because you fought harder, but because you yielded to divine order. Peace is the soul's agreement with truth, and from that agreement, all else begins to find its rightful place. Health is the result of divine order. Health is not a goal to be chased by strained effort. It is the inevitable outcome. When divine order is restored in consciousness, people often rush to repair the body as if trying to press back the petals of a wilted flower, forgetting that the source is not in the petals but in the soil. When the soil is good, the blossom unfolds naturally. When consciousness is nourished by right belief, right speech, and right habit, the body can only reflect wholeness. This is the immutable principle of spiritual law, and anyone who understands it ceases to chase symptoms and instead turns inward to correct the foundation. Thoughts are the seeds sown into the soil of consciousness. Each thought carries its own energy, and over time they accumulate into the atmosphere of the spirit. If those seeds are fear, resentment, and doubt, the soil of consciousness becomes barren, and the body reflects this through disorder and disease. But if the seeds are trust, gratitude, and love, then the soil is fertile, and health manifests naturally. The body has no power of choice. It faithfully reproduces whatever the mind persistently plants. Words are the water poured upon those seeds. Every word contains a hidden declaration sent to the subconscious. When a person repeatedly says, I am weak, I fall ill easily, I cannot, they are watering seeds of negation, and the harvest of unrest is sure to come. But when they declare, I am upheld, life is flowing through me, I am at peace, they water the seeds of life. And because spiritual law never fails, the body will blossom in the likeness of the seeds planted. Habits are the climate that sustains the garden. You may have bright moments of thought and kind words, but if your daily routine is soaked in worry, complaint, and tension, the garden cannot endure. That is why lasting health is inseparable from lifestyle. Moments of stillness, sincere praise, and acts of gratitude together form the climate of nurture. And the body mirrors that climate with either stability or disorder. When you grasp this principle, health is no longer a mystery. It does not depend on luck or heredity. It is the result of inner order, like a river. If its source is pure, the downstream cannot be polluted. When consciousness is clear, the body cannot be disordered. Trying to fix the petals while neglecting the soil produces only temporary results, but tending the soil, that is, thoughts, words, and habits ensures a lasting harvest, health, then is in effect not the starting point. People often place health as the supreme goal, pursuing diets, regimens, and treatments in hopes of keeping the body in order. Yet spiritual law teaches that the body is but the screen. The real film runs within consciousness. To change the image on the screen, you do not tear the screen, you change the film. When the film is divine order, the picture can only be wholeness. This is why outward efforts are never enough. If the inward shift is missing, a person may train strictly and diet rigidly, yet if the mind is crowded with worry, the body will soon reflect that strain. Conversely, one may not follow a perfect regimen, yet if the mind rests in peace, faith, and gratitude, they often radiate enduring health. It is not the body that shapes consciousness, but consciousness that shapes the body. Therefore, see health as the byproduct of divine order. Do not chase it as a prize. Build order within. When you tend your thoughts so that they nourish only clear belief, when you guard your words so that they plant sustaining declarations, when you shape your habits to preserve an atmosphere of peace, then health will come as the natural result without struggle. This is the only way to true health, not dependent on fleeting means, but grounded in the firm foundation of spiritual law. Thus, health is no longer a mystery to fear. It is the sure consequence of divine order, rightly nurtured, when the soil of consciousness is rich, when the seeds of thought are wholesome, when the waters of speech are pure, and when the climate of habit is steady. The fruit of health must appear fresh, strong, enduring. This is the unchanging promise of spiritual law, and whoever tends the soil rather than the petals will enjoy its full reward, living in simple discipline and service. No principle, however lofty, remains more than a concept unless it is lived out in daily discipline. Yet discipline here does not mean rigid rules that burden life. It is the simple, mindful actions repeated until the spirit takes root in habit and becomes natural. A day begins with prayer, not elaborate words, but a moment of turning inward and affirming the truth. I am in God, and God is in me, asterisk. This opening sets the tone for the entire day. Like the first note that decides the key of a symphony, throughout the day, discipline continues as watchfulness. It is the ability to notice when the mind is drifting into worry, when words are about to become complaint, when actions stray from peace. Each time you recognize it, you pause, take a slow breath, and return the mind to divine order. This is discipline at its gentlest, unyielding but never harsh. It is like the gardener who keeps pulling weeds so the soil remains clean for seeds to grow. Without such vigilance, what you sow in the morning is easily choked by the dust of life. In the evening, discipline becomes gratitude. You need not write long lists. Simply close the day with a spirit of thanksgiving, seeing how even small moments carried light. Gratitude is more than words. It is energy that completes the circle. In order, a day that ends in gratitude rises like an offering, and that posture prepares tomorrow to shine brighter. Prayer, watchfulness, and gratitude, three simple acts which, when woven into rhythm, transform principle into reality. Health, too, must be maintained in this rhythm. One act of healing may mark a turning point, but lasting health comes only when nourished by daily discipline. Without it, the mind slips back into old habits, and the body reflects disorder once more. But when discipline becomes lifestyle, the body is held steady in the flow of divine order. Each day is a reaffirmation, each habit a reinforcement, until Health becomes the natural default. Yet there is a further element by which health not only endures but flourishes: service. If you keep everything to yourself, energy grows stagnant, and all stagnation becomes suffocating. But when you share, when you lift others with the same light entrusted to you, the energy does not diminish, it multiplies. Helping others is not only ethical action, it is a spiritual principle that maintains circulation, as a stream stays pure only while it flows. So the soul remains full only when love pours forth, not hoarded. Service need not be grand. It may be an encouraging word, a smile, attentive listening, or prayer that beholds another in light rather than fear. Each time you uphold another, you also strengthen yourself, for spiritual law is always reciprocal. The energy you release returns to you. The strength you give doubles within you. In this way, health becomes a cycle continually renewed, continually expanding. And in service, you discover that health reaches far beyond the body. It is not merely the absence of disease, but the creative vitality you contribute to the world when you live disciplined in prayer, watchfulness, and gratitude, and then allow that health to flow outward in service. You become a living instrument of divine order. Your life ceases to be a struggle with symptoms. It becomes a continual stream of vitality, peace, and light, simple discipline, and humble service. These form the foundation of enduring health, for then you are no longer living for yourself alone, but become a witness to divine law, so that all who look at you perceive God's order at work. And when health ceases to be a goal and becomes the natural fruit of disciplined living and serving, you will know you have entered a new realm where life is no longer bound, but flows without end. Health is no longer a fragile goal to be chased, but the natural outcome when the soul moves in harmony with divine order. When you tend the soil instead of forcing the petals, when you keep the discipline of mindfulness and open your heart in service, the body will mirror the fullness of life. Remember, nothing outside can grant you wholeness that the inside has not yet accepted. And when you choose to live from peace, from love, and from faith, you not only heal yourself, you become a light for the world.